fairly short lesson, which is good news. I think we have just maybe 2 slides to look at and 5 questions to work out, which means you guys should get a pretty good chunk of your time to work on your homework in class today. A couple of things that have happened just outside of this. This morning I went ahead and I sent you your review for your test, although we've got some time because we're going to work on some SLO stuff, things like that. I probably won't do a review video out beforehand. One is that I just don't have a lot of extra time to be able to come in early and do that unless I somehow find it. With track practice and track meets, I'm gone more and more all the time. What we will likely do with that review is I will record doing those review questions in front of you in class. Whatever we don't get covered, I'll review with the other class. I'll send no video out in 2 parts, get all that to you whenever we're ready to do that. Does that make sense? All right, we're okay with that. All right, so solving quadratic equations 2. So this means that we're going to look at a different method for solving some types of quadratic equations. Some quadratic equations can be solved by factoring the difference of 2 squares and then applying the zero product property. The zero product property is simply where we get x plus or minus a number, and then we set it equal to 0 and move everything over to the 0 side so that we get x equals. That's another name for that is finding our roots, right? So we already know what the zero product property is, even if we don't necessarily use that terminology a lot. And that states that if a product is 0, then at least one of its factors is 0. So if we see multiple sets of these parentheses with x plus or minus involved, then we're solving for 0 in each and every one of those individual products. Okay, does that make sense to us? We can wobble our heads up and down. We get what's going on so far. All right, and our next slide is what we're actually looking at today, and that's all that it is. That means that if I see a variable squared, right, where let's say that this is x squared minus something squared, right, so let's say 16, right, that this is the difference of 2 squares. This would be x minus 4, right, because the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 16 is 4, we would get x minus 4x plus 4. Are we already fairly familiar with that specific type of instance? Yes. Okay, we're going to look at some other examples of this where we're going to square root some things where we square root both parts. For instance, they might tell me that a squared minus b squared actually does equal something. What does x equal to cause that? Okay, that's the extent of our slide. So from here, hopefully we're paying attention. We look at some different types of questions. Okay, it's like I got to pull it up because I forgot to. All right, we're in lesson, what did I say, 77? 78, thank you. 78, let's come down here. 78, there we are. Like I said, only 5 questions today, and then you guys will be free. Okay? This first one right off the bat is already different than what we saw in those notes. Okay, but we're going to try to just think about this. If I have x squared minus 12x minus 6 minus negative 3x squared minus 34x minus 36, forgetting those last 2 slides, what would be the first thing that you would do here? Distribute the negative. Very good. So I'm going to distribute this negative. Now, the number one thing that people do whenever distributing the negative, but is as a mistake, is they distribute the negative, but they only distribute it to the first term. They only distribute it, in this case, to the negative 3x squared. Where do I have to distribute that negative to? Every term. So I have to distribute this negative here and here, right? So as I rewrite this question, what I'm actually writing is is x squared minus 12x minus 6, then what? Plus 3x squared, good. Plus 34x plus 36 equals 0. All right, so you guys knew that. All right, so we're starting off with on pretty good footing. What would the next thing that you would do, just naturally? Combine like terms. So we're going to look for like terms. Are there any like terms with x squared? What is it? All right, so what is that going to equal? All right, so I'm going to write 4x squared. Are there any like terms with negative 12x? 34x. So negative 12x and 34x is what? 22x, 22x, all right, plus or minus? Plus 22x. All right, are there any like terms with negative 6? All right, what's that going to give me? Positive 30, right? All right, equals 0. All right, so we have 4x squared plus 22x plus 30 equals 0. What would you do after that? Anybody know? Think about it. Consider it. This question is on a test. We want to know what the roots are. Take out a 4, take out a 2. What do you think? Take out a 2. I can take a 2 out of everything. All right, so I'm going to come back over here. Let's say I take a 2 out of everything. So I'm going to take out a 2. What's that leave me with? 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. All right, so the 2 is gone. Let's kind of forget about the 2 because this is an equivalent quadratic formula, right? What would we do with this? Okay, we want to find the 0, so we want to get x equals something. What do I do with that? Everybody's staring intently. We have 2 options. One, we can try to factor it and get 2 sets of parentheses, or we can use the quadratic formula that negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? Okay? Quadratic. What did I say? Did I say something wrong? No. Okay. That's what you want to do here? Okay, that's fine. Let's see. So help me set that up then, Emily. What would you write? Negative 11 plus or minus? Two times 2. Okay. So a couple of things we can simplify. We know that we're going to get negative 11 plus or minus something over 4. Okay. 11 squared is 121. Negative 4 times 2 times 15. So just in my calculator, 11 squared minus 4 times 2 times 15 comes out to what? 1. Comes out to 1. The square root of 1. What is the square root of 1? 1, right? Is that correct? All right. So what we have is negative 11 plus or minus 1 divided by 4. So we have 2 possible answers here, right? Right? What's the first thing that we would do? How would I find my first answer? Negative 11 plus 1. What's negative 11 plus 1? Negative 10. What's negative 10 divided by 4? Okay, negative 5 over what? 2. So negative 5 halves. Okay, now what? What's negative 11 minus 1? What's negative 12 divided by 4? Negative 3. Negative 3. So I'm getting negative 5 halves and negative 3. Okay? So did that question looked hard, but it didn't use everything that we've already used up to this point. Right? There was really no new things being done. Now, just before I move on from it, and because we do have time, right? Does everybody have that set of notes down using the quadratic and how to get there? Yes? Okay? So that is a guaranteed, surefire way to get that answer. Now, what I did is I did the 2 factors. Okay? Because it's a 2x, 2 is prime, right? So I know I'm going to get 2x and x. Do you guys agree with that? Okay? And, all right, it's plus and plus, so I really should be able to get plus and plus. What types of things multiply to be 15? 5 and 3, right? We want to be able to get 11x, so we need things that after that are going to add up to be 11. So if I do 2 times, if I do a 5 over here, that's going to be 10, right? plus 3 is too much, right? That's 13. Well, let's say we switch it around. Let's do my 3 here, and let's do my 5 here. All right, that's 2 times 3 is what? 6x plus 5x is 11x, and 5 times 3 is 15, and 2x times x is 2x squared. So does this work? All right, so that works. Now all I have to do is 2x plus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 5 and divide by 2, correct? All right, so in that case, x equals negative 5 halves. And over here, x plus 3 equals 0, so all I need to do is do what? And I get x equals negative 3. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to do it this way or that this way is necessarily easier. I'm just saying that it can be done both ways. But here you have a lot more, I want to say, thinking to do. Whereas the other one, it's just plug the numbers into the equation and work it out, right? This one, you have to make sure that your 2x plus 5 times x plus 3 is going to equal 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. You want to make sure that you're working with everything correctly, okay? All right, do we understand this? All right, the next set of questions I think are quite a little bit easier because they deal with what we've been talking about in our notes. All right. Determine whether 49a to the fourth minus 25y squared is a difference of two squares. If so, factor it. If not, explain why. Okay? So let's look at this as a squared minus b squared. Okay? If I want to do a squared minus b squared equals a minus b times a plus b, the first thing I have to do is find the square root of a and the square root of b, right? Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to square root this and this. What is the square root of 49? 7. What is the square root of a to the fourth? No, what is the square root of a to the fourth? Think of it as it's what? A to the second, because 4 divided by 2 is 2, correct? All right. And what about 25? What's the square root of 25? 5. And what's the square root of y to the sixth? Y to the third. So if this works out, this would be 7a squared minus 5y cubed times what? Plus 5y cubed. All right, now before I'm done, just because it's a good practice, we should do what? How can I test to see if this works? I could FOIL it back out. What's 7a squared times 7a squared? 9a to the fourth. Now, because this is a sum difference, are my middle two terms going to cancel out? Yeah, because 7a squared times 5y cubed is 35a squared y cubed. Negative 5y cubed times 7a squared is negative 35 a squared y cubed, right? So those are going to cancel out. What's negative 5y cubed times positive 5y cubed? Negative 25y to the sixth. So let's look up here. Do I see my answer anywhere? B. Okay. Yeah, so my answer is B. All right, how do we feel about that? We feel like that's a question that we could do. All right, so you take each of these terms, not the negative included, all right, and square root both of them, and then that should be the plus and minus answer on both sides. Okay? All right, let's clear up some things. Let's look at question number 3. Solve 169x squared minus 49. So what we want to do is what with 169x squared? Anybody? I hear people like trying to say it, but they're nervous about whether or not they're going to be wrong. What am I going to do with 169x squared? Square root it, okay? So what is the square root of 169? 13. What is the square root of x squared? X, okay, good. And then, again, we don't want to include the negative here. What's the square root of 49? 7. All right, so I'm going to do minus 7 and 13x what? Plus 7. Now what do I want to do? If I want to solve for x, what do I need to do in this case? Set each of them equal to 0. So in this case, what's going to happen? Add 7 and then divide by. So I'm going to get what? 7/13, right? What about over here? Subtract 7 and divide by. So I'm going to get negative 7/13. So what we can say is x equals plus or minus 7/13. Does that match any answer that we see up there? B. Okay. How are we feeling? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs kind of sideways. Where are we at, guys? Okay, I see some thumbs up. That's encouraging. Let's keep practicing. We've only got like 2 more questions. All right, x to the 4th equals 16. Well, this is not x to the 4th minus 16 equals 0, is it? Okay, so it's not set up correctly yet, is it? What do I need to do here? All right, subtract 16 to the other side. So x to the 4th minus 16 equals 0. What am I going to do with each term now? Square root each one. So square root this and square root this. What's x to the 4th squared, or the square root of x to the 4th? X squared, okay? And the square root of 16, okay? So we're going to write minus 4 and x squared plus 4. Now, this one provides a different challenge. Okay, let's look at x squared minus 4. Can we break that one down even further? Yeah, what would I do with the x squared and the 4? Square root them, all right? What's the square root of x squared? X, and what's the square root of 4? 2. So I could write x minus 2 and x plus 2 and x squared plus 4, right? I'm just going to bring this guy down. All right, now can I solve these for x? Okay, what do I get here? 2. What do I get here? Negative 2. All right, so now let's look at x squared minus 4. Or sorry, x squared plus 4. X squared plus 4 equals 0. All right, what would I do to solve that? Subtract 4. So x squared equals what? Negative 4. Right, now what would I do to both sides? Square root. All right, and because I'm square rooting it, my x should equal plus or minus what? 2i. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 answers, right? Which makes sense because my question was x to the 4th, so I should get how many answers? I should get 4 answers. If all I got was 3 answers, then I missed something. Okay, so where's my answer at? A. All right, that's maybe one of the trickier questions that they're going to throw at you because a lot of people are going to miss that guy can be broken down further and what that will entail to break that one down. Okay? So hopefully we see and understand this question. So if we get a question like this in our homework or on a test, we know what we're doing. All right. Now let's assume we got that one. And finally, question number 5. Okay. Let's see. What can I do with this right out of the beginning? Take a 4 and an x out. Could I do, let's do something to help ourselves, not just a 4x, but what kind? Let's take out a negative 4x. Very good. All right, what's that going to leave me inside? Minus 36. All right, now that looks like something that is similar to what we've been working with, right? What can I do with x squared minus 36? What's that going to be? X minus 6, x plus 6. And I still have negative 4x out here, right? So what is this going to represent? X equals 0. Good. And this one? And this one? -6. And because it was x cubed, how many answers should I get? 3. And we got them all, right? Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, we can stop there. Are there any questions? No, I think you guys got about 10 minutes to work on your homework. I think it's questions 1 through 20. Okay.